So Dottie, tell me, what's lockdown been like for you since we last did this about 3 weeks ago?
I'm very fucking bored now,
I'm over it.
like of the furlough thing. Like it's obviously
I
a
mean,
nice
yeah.
little holiday, but I'm like, I've I have so many plans of what I'm going to do at the beginning of the day, and
Hmm.
I just sit in my dressing gown
Mm-mm.
for a lot of it. I feel a bit bad. I'm doing Couch to 5K again, which is all right, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just weird, isn't it? Because we're in such a like middle zone when they're trying to ease it, but it doesn't really feel that different to how it was before anyway.
Right. And I think as well, because there's a lack of, I mean, in previously we've had a bit of a sense of a finite time period of like, oh, in 3 weeks we'll update you, but that's just not the case this time. And I think I almost feel like this is just it now, sort of indefinitely. But
Yeah.
yeah.
See, I've stopped watching any updates. Uh,
Oh, yeah. I mean, as well, when feeling a bit down, I think during lockdown, I really tend to go for things I've watched and am familiar with. Like my flatmate made fun of me because I've been rewatching Vanderpump Rules, and he's just called it. He says it's not like you're even watching uh
quality.
something like if something quality. You're and I was thinking, yeah, I am wasting my time. Life is
Never
short, and
seen
I'm
it.
rewatching Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah.
I did that. I rewatched The Hills.
Yeah, I've rewatched The Hills. It's there's actually at the moment Whitney Port, who was on The Hills and did a spin-off in the city. Do you remember watching The City?
Oh God, yeah. That was so.
Yeah. She's doing this thing on her YouTube channel at the moment where she and her husband, who actually worked on the show,
Hmm.
and weirdly set her up on dates apparently and stuff, like, yeah, on the show. But so they're now married. So they're doing this thing where they do like a live reaction to it, so they watch every episode of The City, and it's so funny. I'm not really I don't really follow Whitney Port, but I just came across the videos and they really make me laugh. They're reacting to stuff.
I think
So
it's
if you
like,
need some sort of light relief, that's
yeah.
definitely
I think it's
recommend.
nostalgia with stuff like that as well, because I do remember
Yeah.
reality TV back then didn't feel quite as horrible and dangerous as it does now. Like it just was, you knew it was fake.
With the likes of those, and I think with The Hills, and I mean before that you had Laguna Beach, didn't you?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it was because structured reality just wasn't, or it was the first, but as far as I can think, it was probably the first version of like a structured reality show. And now because they're so prolific, I hope that's the right word, um like you say, that maybe they had less of a sort of, there was something more light entertainment about it. And I'm not saying they're like heavy now.
No, but nothing happened in an episode. It was literally like, what I remember one of the ones with The Hills was Lauren.
Having to get a plane to drop a dress off, and she had to turn straight back, and it was her in the back of a cab going, "I don't know how I'm going to do this and school."
And yeah, and even then I felt it. I felt the drama. I was fully taken in by no, but yeah. So so what I'm trying to say is, so instead of rewatching, and I love Vanderpump Rules, just to clarify, like it's really really entertaining. If you've not watched it, I would recommend it. It's me and so my friend Alex actually is the one who got me into it, and we've agreed that it's the best reality TV show ever. Just it's so chaotic, but it's like, yeah, anyway. So on that note, making sure that I am actually watching things I've not watched before. So today I have watched 3 and a bit episodes of The Sopranos.
Hey, very good.
Not doing stuff last minute at all.
No, but with today, I think we were going to talk about, not grouping them together, but we're going to talk about GoodFellas and The Sopranos, because GoodFellas you saw a bit ago, didn't you?
Yes, and I loved it.
And I think I can say GoodFellas is probably my favourite film, and The Sopranos is probably my favourite ever TV show. Not that I'm into all the same shit, but they're similar, but they do it, obviously the theme of the mafia similar, they do it in a very different way. And The Sopranos is kind of like, oh, what's the mafia like now that they've all kind of, the old school have grown up, and it's the next generation. And then also there's a mental health take on it, whereas GoodFellas was the It's actually based on, I have the book here, it's based on Wise Guy, which is the story
Wise guy.
Wise Guy of Henry Hill, who flipped, and he helps the feds in the end because he was in trouble.
What's your first thoughts?
Okay, so my first, actually, I was just going to ask you first, just because I do think, because you are, I know you say you're not into all the same stuff, but you really, really, really enjoy stuff about the mafia, especially like New York. I think you really enjoy stuff about like the New York mafia.
Like the Italian families and stuff.
Yeah. What is it that appeals to you, and when did you start getting into it, do you think?
I don't know for sure. I think I've always my favourite director is Scorsese. Scorsese, however you meant to say it.
Scorsese.
But I mean, he's all of his films I feel like are very much like really New York, but gritty New York, and I kind of love that. And then I think the fact that GoodFellas is among my favourite films of his, and that it is, I don't know what it is about the like mafia stories. I just find them,
because it's
really
definitely something you like, you love it, like, and I think I can understand, like, there's something really interesting, I think, about like those, so they just, those, like the family dynamic thing. I think the fact that they are so, but there's like a law within that, and within like mafia
that doesn't
stuff.
It's like about tradition, and there are things you do and things you don't do. And I think what I love about The Sopranos though is that it kind of like there's a ridiculousness to like how much they stick with the laws when they want to, but whereas there's actually a line when Tony in therapy, when I think Dr. Melfi says something like, but why what's the result, why do you get like angry in the way that you do, like is there not a way that you could deal with this more calmly? And he replies, oh, but then how do you get people to do what you want? And so it's like, I don't know, the fact that Tony as a boss is like kind of playing everyone, because I don't know where you're at the moment, but he's not officially the boss for a long, like quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, so I've just watched 3 episodes. I was midway through the 4th, and Dottie rudely interrupted and asked if we could do this. So it's that thing where, like, say you're not fully sure of like the dynamics, but you do get the sense that, I mean, because this is the thing now, so the bit I've watched, it's Uncle Junior seems to have some power, and obviously he's the generation above. He's Tony Soprano's dad's brother. So there's, but yeah, so it's not, and to be honest, I'm not the best. It does take me a while to sort of get, because I'm really bad at remembering character names, like just anything I watch. So that's why I keep referring to the therapist, either as the therapist or Karen from GoodFellas. Like,
she's all grown up.
So it's sort of in the, and I think from what you've said, Dottie, I think the first series really is setting up a lot of background, because the thing is as well, like, it is like mafia stuff is complicated because it's all very because it has to be like relatively, like, I mean, I was about to say it has to be relatively like covert, but that's actually one of the things with the mafia is they're not, and they have that much power that they don't have to be. Like in the first episode, they Tony Soprano runs over someone who owes him money in front of a load of people and doesn't care because
this is what I've talked about with some people, is that when you watch, I think this is what, I don't want to say excites me. I don't like, violence doesn't excite me, but just like, they're so like Italian mafia films. I'm not saying like that's actually what it's like or the representation, but when it shows it in films, like it's Italian American mafia are quite thuggish and not very careful.
And yet they still kind of, like, the way they dispose of bodies is quite like bare minimum of like, okay, we'll chop off the hands and the head so that you can't, and the body will be dumped in a river.
It's one of those things that you watch it, so whenever you, obviously as well, we're watching something that's being represented in like drama for like entertainment, so, but just in all of these things, it's and it is part of the reason, like, say, there is the enjoyment of it, like, they're so unfazed about, I know, having to get rid of dead bodies. They're just dragging it through, like, not being that subtle, and not like, they're just really chill about it, aren't they? And I know it's like kind of the day job in these things, but yeah, like you say, there's no.
What's brilliant, I think, about the Sopranos thing is you see so clearly the divide of, he has his like he has his family life with like his 2 kind of like bratty kids and his wife and everything, and then it like the night before he's been like beating the living snot out of someone for not like, it's just like, that's what's good about The Sopranos. Whereas Goodfellas is more of like, well, it is like, I'd say it's like it's the classic gangster movie. It's not The Godfather, but it's quite like, well, that first line, ever since I was young and you wanted to be a gangster,
right?
And it just goes straight into it, and it's where a lot of the, well, there's lots of references back to Goodfellas in The Sopranos, because that's kind of what people think of as the,
and I mean, in like when it's like referenced as well, like I mean, I don't know if to say I'm like the only, I've not seen any Godfather films. I've not seen Casino's like mafia and stuff as well, isn't it?
yeah, like when Vegas is first up and
yeah, and I've not seen that, so I'm not, but you get this like, you get to like The Simpsons, for instance. Having been rewatching The Simpsons recently, I'm like, oh, these are just like tropes that are like so in, they're just using really like it's, yeah. And I think there must be some like Goodfellas referencing that, because it, like say, I think it is like say, because it's based on this it is based on like a real story and stuff, isn't it? That
well, yeah, with Goodfellas, it's very close to the book, which I'm assuming it's quite a accurate. There's and like the monologues from him and like Karen are quite, some of them are taken just right out of this book.
Okay, but yeah, it's one of those things that I am like looking forward to like watch more, because I think it will like heat up a bit, because at the moment, like I say, it is, but it's like it's so you can tell it's a well-made thing, and there's something really enjoyable like about seeing the his family, like his domestic situation. Like I love their house.
Yeah
It's weird watching it though, because obviously, so is it 1999 or something it was made?
It started in 99. Yeah.
And it looks like a period thing, but I'm like, no, that's just what stuff was like when they were making it. Right?
Oh,
it's been,
I know you're not on Instagram anymore, but there is an account on Instagram called The Fashion of the Sopranos, and
this is the thing, it's stuff like this that I do enjoy. That's why I think Instagram like does totally have its purpose, so maybe I will go back to it at some point. But yeah, the I mean, I was just watching an episode then, and Carmela was wearing this shirt, and it was incredible. It was like so I think it's episode 2 or 3, and she's gone to see Lydia Soprano, is that Tony's mum?
Yeah.
And the shirt is just fantastic. We might, in fact, yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can find a picture of it, because it's honestly, I just couldn't take my eyes off it. So no, it's very enjoyable, like seeing all of that. And obviously, like, but the thing is though, when people were first watching it, they wouldn't have been like, wow, that's because that was what, because it's shot. It's the whole point is it's like contemporary, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of current mafia life, because there's a lot of the running theme that as you go further through and he gets more into his therapy and everything, is like you learn about, like, I think Tony Soprano, and I know that I don't know if I'm biased, but just like, I honestly think he's the best TV character ever made, because he's so like, he's probably the first anti-hero in TV where you're rooting for him all the time, despite the fact he's a violent criminal, he's a violent thug really, but there's like lots of layers, and there's a lot of, in his therapy he gets to a point where he's kind of like, well, I didn't ask for this, I literally had no other path, look at my dad, look at my father and stuff. And he talks about with AJ, he like gets very teary, kind of like, I don't want him to be anywhere near this life and stuff. So it's like a really,
AJ is his son. Oh yeah, Anthony Jr., of course. Yeah, because I mean, that's the other thing actually in the first episode. So there's a thing with the ducks coming into his swimming pool, and then he gets teary talking about the ducks in therapy. And I just do think he's very like say, even from just watching 3 episodes, I just like he's I mean, because I suppose you, like you say, you can have like good characters and you don't like, they're good characters because they're well developed and acted and all this other stuff. But I can already tell there is like a bit of a rooting for it. I can't, it's strange, isn't it? And they've done it well. And I think you were saying before, weren't you, that this is almost like something that's been also, it was achieved or done very well in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, because you can see there. Although I would argue Sopranos, like, all the way through, I'm somewhat rooting for Tony, because like he's you know that he's like he's troubled. There's a lot of shit. His mum is fucking nuts. Like he's witnessed violence from a young age. His dad was literally the head of the family. He's still having to like manipulate his way through dealing with like all the men. Like he's still having to be the boss and like fill that role and everything. But with I'd say with someone like in Breaking Bad, I feel like there was a turn where I was just like, you're a prick. No.
Oh yeah, it definitely fluctuated more with, I mean, this is me, I can't comment on the Sopranos yet because I am only 3 and a bit episodes in, but you definitely with Breaking Bad you fluctuated, didn't you, where like it went, so yeah, it did, yeah. But so you're saying with this that you feel quite consistently with him on
I don't know if it's because he does have those like semi-regular, I mean they're not like, I don't know if it is every episode with Caesar, but you have those things with Dr. Melfi, you have his therapy sessions, and so you can see the cogs and you kind of understand, he's quite, because also there are episodes where he displays he's quite racist. He's like, he's very, racist, sexist, a bit of a pig to Carmela generally, because they all have their gumars and stuff like that. But you still kind of, just because he's quite like broken, and
I wonder if, like, not to say I won't bring up Breaking Bad too much, but with Walter White, they're very reliant on having the audience just buy into the fact that his solution to being terminally ill and wanting to provide to his family is, I mean, it's a massive leap, isn't it, to expand, and they obviously do it well enough because you do, but to expect the audience to very happily accept the fact that his solution to that problem is, I'm going to cook loads of meth and like, because it's not, because it's kind of, and obviously as well it's like more complicated than that, and I think at the end when he says, I liked doing it, blah blah blah, whereas with Tony Soprano, I suppose that, like I say, this is a life he was born into, he's been exposed to it, it's almost like he just didn't know any other. But maybe that's the distinction.
With because I remember the first episode of Breaking Bad, they kind of set it up where like Hank Schrader or whatever is talking to Walt as if like, oh, you fucking pussy, like you would never, like I'm the badass, I'm in the DEA and shit.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of feel like, oh my god, I can see why you want to maybe be like, they really like pick at his masculinity and set up to be like, oh, this guy clearly feels like an absolute like wet blanket in his life.
Yeah, he's a bit of a like, yeah. I mean, as I say, I've not watched in a while, so I can't. But I do think that is maybe the distinction of where you can't you're not on board with Walter White as much as you would be with Tony Soprano, because he did have other options, and I know, I mean, you could argue the same, but in the sense that it is a lot of based on decisions he's made later in life as to why he gets and does a lot of the horrible things he ends up doing. But no, it's very interesting, and like I do think, and like you were saying, you think Tony Soprano might be maybe like the first anti-hero for this type of thing.
When you compare it to GoodFellas, although like you could argue the neighborhood he was in and everything like that would add up to it, but like there's a definite thing at the beginning of GoodFellas with he's called Henry in it, isn't he?
You wanted to say Ray Liotta then, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's a bit where like he talks about how like I saw the gangsters like in our neighborhood on the other side of the street. It seemed really cool, and he's like, and also he's Italian, so he's Irish, so he can't technically ever be a maid.
Yeah.
So it's more like from his deep admiration for it that you wanted to kind of do it, whereas with Tony you get a sense that it's like literally like, I hand you this. Like,
I mean, let's say it'll be interesting because like at the moment, because with you have some insight into his dad at the moment, but like nothing. No, this is the thing actually at this stage. Maybe it's to say I do makes my lack of understanding, but from what I can see from what I've watched so far, it's very much like you're still his origin of sort of how he came to be where he is kind of unknown. Like you don't really have the full extent of his dad, and you can tell his mum is a difficult person, but I don't think you realise how truly terrible she is at this stage.
We've got good shit to come, because there were bits when it like it is quite early on as well. It has flashbacks of young Tony and his dad and his mum young, and a lot of like that's what kind of and you there's like a bit in a therapy where they hit an absolute turning point with it. and like you can see his panic attacks,
Right.
the reason for it and everything. So it's yeah, it's like you don't feel like he had any other choice, because he's also he's not like an educated guy. He's quite, I think there's later on when he tries to write notes to people, you can see that he's not particularly good at spelling. Stuff like that. So he hasn't had the most options, but he talks a lot about, he's got a really nurturing thing where he doesn't want his kids near it.
Yeah, that's interesting you say about say not having got to that bit yet, but he's like, I don't want my son to be anywhere near it. Can I assume that his children don't know what he does?
Not explicitly, but that does kind of, like,
right.
I think we're coming up to an episode soon where Meadow literally turns around to him point blank, says, "Are you in the mafia?" And he's like, "Where did you get?" He's like, "I'm in waste management." Like, where did you get that from? But then there's like there's a somewhat level of honesty between them from that point. But no, he tries not to. I think whenever it's mentioned in the house, like, I think sometimes the kids like scream at Tony and like their mum, like when they say like language, they go like, "Oh, look at fucking dad!" Like, what the fuck? And it's just like, "Hey," tells them to wind their neck and whatever. But.
Do you know what's interesting actually, with you saying about like language and stuff, and I think as well you might want to cut this and put this in a different bit because it might not lead on necessarily, but in the second episode there's a bit where I have to say that I'm really rubbish with the characters' names.
It takes so long to learn it's like Game of Thrones. Like, you have to learn all the family stuff.
Let me see. Right, I can try and work it out. Okay, it's Christopher. Carmela's
cousin, but he says my nephew.
But it's referred to as nephew.
Yeah.
So him, and I think someone's just been shot in the bath. I think he was there too. Brendan. Okay, so him and Brendan are like waiting outside a nightclub, and then they're like, when then Martin Scorsese walks in, and I was like, oh wow. So I was like Googling, like, did Martin Scorsese make a cameo? And I found an article that was talking about the fact that Martin Scorsese says, so this is from the Belfast Telegraph, just so I don't know why they're talking, but yeah, anyway. Martin Scorsese has only ever watched one episode of The Sopranos because he could not identify with that generation of the underworld.
Fair enough. It's very
so, and I think that's the thing that you're saying as well, that like, so obviously his stuff is like GoodFellas is one generation, and then Sopranos is like what would have been like the contemporary mafia thing. But yeah, I was just really surprised because I was wanting to see if he was actually in it, but no, it's an actor playing him.
I saw the title of an article the other day and I decided not to click on it. It might have not been exactly what it said, but it was like an interview with like Christopher and the cast of The Sopranos on why Martin Scorsese is shit. And I was like, I don't want to read that. I want it to be made.
Don't want to break that.
But it might have been.
But one of the things he says, they use language, 4-letter words in front of their daughters at the dinner table. I don't get that. Like, he obviously sees a so they live in New Jersey with the big houses. I don't get it. I mean, I don't know if what's his. Maybe it's literally like just not deep. Not. I mean, any of his.
Also, there's a level of like it would kind of have to be that way now because there needs to be a way for the money trail to not be like back in the day. I think it was probably easier to hide dirty money, whereas like there has to be a lot of putting it into business and
I wonder as well if he's saying he can't identify with it, might just be like, well, because that's just not his. So yeah, but I just thought it was interesting. I hope I've not broken your heart.
No, I already kind of like, I just try not to. They're very different things, and I think that's what's funny about it. Like, GoodFellas is an amazing film just separately. Like, there's so much in it, but it is kind of like, in my eyes, that's the original. That's like my favourite ever gangster film. But it's very like, it's much more. I don't know. There's just something different about a TV series with the constant, with that you learn more about the characters and the fact they've taken that mental health angle.
Yeah,
I think really like it's so interesting, and I think that's what set it apart. And that's why I think that's why with the pilot it was very heavily focused on that, because it wanted to be. This isn't just.
I mean, I was having a bit of a think about like sort of when you were saying about that and like the differences there, and I think it's interesting that so obviously like the archetypal gangster man in the mafia is kind of like it's really, I mean, it's toxic masculinity like possibly at like its highest form, maybe, I don't know, like, but just very rooted in like power and like showing their force and like they can have people sleep with the fishes. That was really embarrassing me saying that, I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's what they do. That's what the bodies
Sleep with the fishes. That's why when I first heard that in Sopranos, I was like, yeah, sweet, that's what I'm after. But so I suppose by having this angle where they are talking about mental health in a man in the mafia, like it's just, I think it's just interesting, and I think that's what probably, like you say, maybe that's what makes it so good. And like because I mean, if you think of, I know we keep referring back to GoodFellas because that is the only one I've watched, so if Dottie mentions anything else I'm going to be like, huh. But it's not like they're not, I don't want to say it's not one-dimensional like characterization at all, because that's not it, but you get a very like the format, I think, of GoodFellas is Henry Hill wants to be a gangster, just kind of just slowly starts to get integrated, lives the high life, like has a great time, it's amazing, bit of a wobble and then like a massive crash. So you get sort of, but you see it from a very like outward perspective of you watching it.
And in my eyes, it's very much like not the focal point, but the bit that sticks. It's like the big heist that happens is kind of the peak of. That's where everything starts to. That's the peak of they make shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's all going so well,
and then it
all goes down when he starts that. That's my favourite bit in GoodFellas is, and it's probably loads of people's favourite bit, but when they play Layla piano exit, and it shows how Robert De Niro, how he's just had everyone to do with that heist whacked because he's not going out, and it's just panning through, and you're like, oh, he's dead. Oh, he's
It's just, I think with because I would say, so I've only watched it once, but I was thinking like I would like, especially after watching Sopranos, I was like, I do want to watch GoodFellas again because it's so, for me, it's very, very entertaining. Like it's his best. I think that is Martin Scorsese's best film, and I think I liked Wolf of Wall Street so much because it felt very reminiscent of GoodFellas. Because do you think?
Yeah, I think it was obviously different subjects and a different kind of thing, but just the style of it and how it. I don't know how it comes through. I just really.
I think really almost cool. As well, a similar trajectory of like he starts doing this thing, he starts getting into stocks, and he's really good to do like the penny stocks, and then he gets really, really, really rich, and then something bad happens, and like it does kind of it does go very like So that's interesting. I can see what you mean saying that now, actually. I'm really craving watching it now. It's so good. I just think it's like such good fun. Like I don't know if that's, and it's weird because I think now as well, like in the world we live in, I think you need to be aware that like these things are like it's violent. You don't want to like glorify these horrible things.
No, because it's horrific and they are thugs.
But it's so fun. Like that whole film, like I absolutely adore. Like when I'm watching when him and Karen start their relationship and he like takes her to the restaurant and like they have this really long, I think I've said to you about this before, about this being probably one of my favourites in the film. From behind Henry Hill and Karen, and Henry Hill's taking Karen into a restaurant. They're going in because he's in the mafia and he's like this big deal. They're going in through the kitchen, like all this blah, blah, blah. It's a really long shot, and then they finally make their way through this really, really chaotic, busy restaurant where like everyone wants a table. And then they finally get there and someone actually brings on a table for them. It's like and stuff like that, and I just love like it sounds crazy. I love like the glamour of it. Like you see that and you'll be like, I want to be a mafia wife, like a mob wife, and live that like
Friday
high life.
Night and Saturday's the girlfriend night. I'll put up with that. Like
fine. But that's actually like something. Sorry, just talking about that scene made me think that's. Because I'm just thinking like various tropes that I now feel like I'm more privy to just from having like these two sources of the mafia things I've now watched. But like getting a seat in a restaurant is a real, if a busy New York restaurant is a real marker of power in these things. Like it's the same thing when Tony comes in with one of his. It's not Carmela. It's another, like a girlfriend or mistress or whatever, and he gets a table straight away, and it's a busy restaurant, and it's just, I just love that is that really marks like mafia, like that you're in the mafia and its power is that you can get a table at a busy restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting segue actually into one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is food in these things.
Yeah, interesting. Because isn't Goodfellas?
I think it's
They talk about Goodfellas. Apparently, it's all of Martin Scorsese's father's or like original recipes from something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's but yeah, Goodfellas is good for the. It's a lot of like I think it's a lot of contrasting violence and food. Like it's the bit where you know, when Henry Hill, when they've all come back from burying that body and
they're about to go bury the body with Joe Pesci and stuff. Yeah, they're I actually like was thinking about this bit before when I was thinking about like food in these types of things, where they go where they just before they're about to go bury that body,
and they're at Joe Pesci's mum's house or something.
Yes.
More sausage, and they're like, he's like, oh my god, no.
she's like you must stay for food. Like it's such a, it's just, I just love it. I just find that a very enjoyable aspect of these things. And I don't know, you can probably speak more experience to that. Is that like a common thing in mafia stuff? Like, especially, I'm talking specifically because I obviously like Italian food is such like, it's
not so much in the Godfather's very like old cinema, I would say.
Okay.
It's not so much in that. I mean, there's like big food. It starts off with that huge wedding, and it's all very like grand and everything. And there's but it's not so much focused on. I guess that like there are scenes with it in, but I wouldn't say. What I'd say with Goodfellas and The Sopranos is that they use it. In The Sopranos, it's very integral to a lot of Tony's therapy in the end.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So it does factor into that then.
Flashbacks to his like how his father got this very good cut of me, like through, you know, violence basically. And they're I don't know if you've seen him with the gang with like Sil and people like that. Like they're based, like their front is like Satrials.
The pork sausage stuff. Yes, yeah.
So they that's where they sit outside and do a lot of their chatting and shit. And there's like I don't know if you've got to the bit where they've got Chris has to get rid of a body quite early on, and he cuts it up in Satrials. And he
not the body of the driver of the truck.
Maybe, I can't remember.
But yeah, I mean, he kills someone in Satrials.
And then when he's cutting them up, he kind of goes like, "Oof, it's going to take me a few days to want to come back to get a cut off Satrials," because he's using like their meat cutter. So that's quite. And also in I don't know, with The Sopranos, it's all very like heavily. There's just a lot of mention of food all the time, but the thing of like meat comes up very like gabagool, that type of meat. Right, focused on later on. But yeah, with Goodfellas, there's a lot I think of the prison scene as well, a lot with it, with the cutting of the garlic.
So that garlic thing is so satisfying, isn't it? Yeah. Although I watch a YouTube channel called Bon Appetit, and I don't know if you've heard of it. It's great. Do watch it if you like. I really enjoy it. But they do sort of they do various things. One of the things they do is called Test Kitchen Talks, where they get, so basically they've got kind of like a cast of sort of very like character driven, this YouTube channel of like, or of people like hosting various like cooking shows and stuff, if you can call it that, on YouTube. Anyway, but they've got an episode or a video where they're talking about, where they're like looking at food and films, and one of the things that comes up is the Goodfellas. He'd chop them with a razor so thinly they'd like melt in the sauce. I can't do, sorry for that terrible accent. But they were like, that would never happen. Like, and I was like, don't break that illusion. I just love the idea of it being. But yeah, it's a very satisfying. Like I watched that. I remember like when I did watch Goodfellas, I was like, I really just wanted like, yeah, I was hungry and I was like wanted pasta and meat. I really wanted meatballs.
As a vegan, watching Sopranos was really tough because I really just crave like sweet sausage or like. Really good. I made like a because they kept talking about like baked ziti, this like pasta bake thing that's meant to have really good Italian sausage on each layer and everything. And I made a vegan version, which is
I
good, but I
remember you saying about that. That's interesting, and I'm glad to hear actually that is something that does sort of come up in The Sopranos a bit more, because I do think it's an interesting. It's just, yeah, I just think it's. I mean, just I love food, so maybe I just enjoy hearing about food.
Yeah, and all their meal times, you think like, what a spread, like that.
Yes, there's always like say that when they do go to Joe Pesci's mum's house. Is he called? It's Tommy, isn't it? I think is the name of the character.
Have you read about the real guy?
No, oh, he's terrifying. That's actually one bit as much like say that film is like so entertaining. Whenever Tommy comes on the screen, you think, oh, what's he gonna do? He's no old bard. Like you feel like all the other ones have at least some sense of like Robert De Niro in Goodfellas, I would argue, is a bit more subtle.
Slightly more.
Slightly, no, but I mean compared to.
I don't want to say level-headed, but
yeah, no, like yeah, because he's crazy. This Joe Pesci, the bit where like that guy that he drink, and when he is that is, isn't it? And he like just shoots him in the. He said he makes a joke and he just like shoots him and he doesn't even do anything and then he kills him. I was just like
Christopher.
Yes.
Shoots Christopher from The Sopranos. He plays Spider, doesn't he, in that scene? But yeah, and everyone just literally after he's done it is like, what the hell have you done?
I was like, come on, took it too far there, man.
Yeah, like you have to bury that for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more an inconvenience than the horror of what's happened.
But that's also, I think, The Sopranos, I'd say, for the violence is more, they don't tend to have music, and it's quite, I'd say Sopranos violence is just quite pure gritty, and it's just quite jarring. Oddly, sometimes I do feel like David Chase, I think he's made it somewhat comedic sometimes, the violence.
David Chase, the creator of...
Yeah.
He's the creator, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think he's almost done it where he like, sometimes he puts a weird joke in it within the killing to make it like, oh God, I'm laughing. Why the hell am I laughing? Like, it's so violent. Whereas I think Goodfellas, what I found, it's weird. I don't enjoy violence. I'm not that sick fuck. But like they do this thing where they like put on it's like popular music of the time, because Goodfellas does a bit of a journey, I think, through decades to show development, which is interesting as well. But so when Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro are beating the shit out of that guy and they start playing that Donovan Somewhere Below the Ocean or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And it's that like 60s, 70s thing, and like, but they're literally like kicking the shit out of him as this plays, and he with that Layla piano exit, that lovely like piano music, and you're just seeing this guy like hung with a load of meat and stuff like people like killed. So I think that's it's odd how the music's good because it's jarring to what you're seeing, and also with a lot of Scorsese, there's a lot of like lovely reds, but it's blood, but it looks very picturesque, and then you have this music over the top, but then it's also does the job of taking you through like through the decades from like 60s through to 80s, because that like I don't know, it's just interesting as you see Henry Hill go further down as well, and you just have this different soundtrack. So you know, like my favorite stage of Henry Hill is where he really really likes heroin, I think it is, cocaine, loved all of it, and he's looking up for helicopters all the time because it's so paranoid.
That final thing as well, it's interesting we say, I mean, I think it is different, but I watching that and thinking, come on Henry, you can do this, you can pull this off, because it's all over the place, and you just think he's lost it, like he's not, because it is, and you're like, if you just do this, and then when you know the woman who his drug mule, basically the one who takes stuff, yeah, and when she calls and you realise the phone's tapped, I'm like, you idiot, you've scuppered it for him.
Yeah, he was doing so well just because he needed the fucking hat. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to tell you about because we were saying about Martin Scorsese doing in his way he does violence. So do you find the violence less like? Because I'm trying to think. Because in Sopranos, so far, I definitely have seen stuff, and I've been a bit like, in Goodfellas, it is kind of. I'm trying to remember, like, if I was. It's almost because you do as it happens over. It's like a 2-hour film, I think. So as it happens over the course, you sort of do become a bit like more numb to stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
However, that's what I was going to say, because I was going to say the most the bit of gore and violence that I found most distressing in a Martin Scorsese film is when that guy gets his hand shot off in Taxi Driver.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's really grim. I forgot about that.
And that film's like old as well, and I think the effects were good because it's like
it's a fucking bloodbath at the end, isn't it? And that's when they do the really
it's the hand. Did you see his hand gets blown to pieces? Sorry.
They show the carnage of it. They do that lovely shot from the top over the entire little house.
Yeah. Oh no, it's so grim at the end. Sorry, just bringing something up, but no, I'm just thinking of things that because you weirdly get numb when you're watching stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where there is.
I think Sopranos, I'd say, does it because and I don't know whether this is where what we said. Martin Scorsese says, "Well, I just don't recognise." I do think like they're trying to make it seem like these guys are just kind of they are thugs. They are like they're quite. They make it seem fumbly. They make it seem really gritty. They make it seem like very like something that like you can imagine if you like witnessed it. I don't know, just it's more real, I think, and it's like how stuff would actually go. Like there's one fight that Tony has with someone where someone ends up spraying oven cleaner in his eyes because it's just like in an apartment and stuff, and it's all very like. And there's a lot more cases of shit going wrong because you have people like I don't know if how much you've encountered of Christopher has a drug problem. And from the beginning, you can see that he's going further and further down into his spiral, and I think eventually he does. There's a bit of an arc with that, but like he's from the start, he's like there's a scene with him and his mate. You must have seen this in the club when they're having cocaine. They're talking as if they're like, "Yeah, we should run this shit. Like we've been down at the bottom for too long," and it's like classic people who have snorted a lot of cocaine talking all this like you know big masculinity shit that they're like spouting out to each other. But like the result of that is that you see Christopher and like people of a similar age who want like they respect the mafia and think it's the coolest shit ever, and you see them doing these jobs and completely like fucking up and at the end and being like, oh god.
Well, they mess up. They completely mess up that and it's a complete accident when they're trying to get the truck of suits to transport them, and one guy gets in and he can't drive. It's like, right, no, get the driver in, and then someone drops a gun,
and they're like,
shoot, and it's like,
yeah, and it goes.
And then he's on the phone to Tony, like, so something's got to be. I wasn't there. I was nothing. Oh, because I don't think Christopher's actually there for it, but he's obviously part of that.
Trying to run it. He wants to be a captain or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, it wasn't my fault. I wasn't there. But yeah, like you say, there's yeah. It's interesting.
I love that bit after that though, when like Tony's like yelling at them in the warehouse and being like, "These suits all need to go back, you fuckers," and Sill's just going through them and goes, "Tom, I was thinking, it wouldn't be so bad if all these suits."
Oh no, he's got one on, and he's like, "Would it be bad if this one went missing? If I?"
yeah, it's fine. Sill is it's Sill, isn't it? I'm going to briefly look it up. He's like classic, just epitome of a game.
Yeah, and this is the thing. So I'm still trying to get my head around names and stuff. But there are a pair that are going around at the moment. Like they go into a coffee shop because they're trying to find something. Oh, this is it. It's like there's quite a bit going on.
It's very there's a lot.
But there are two men who they're like who would so they go into a coffee shop because they're trying to find this guy who works at this coffee shop who is linked to something to do with a license plate on a car and but they're like archetypal, like these are two gangsters because there's almost because I don't know if
is it
the thing with
the guy with
the
grey wing things in his hair.
Yes, I think so.
They're good
because the thing I think a bit with Tony Soprano, and it's James Gandolfini who plays
Gandolfini.
Yeah, he could so easily be like. It's been cast where he doesn't, because if he just looked like a gangster, it would be too like that sort of stereotypical archetypal thing. It just wouldn't work as. But do you not think it would be that would be him embracing it too much? Maybe though
I feel like he dresses quite stereotypically. I don't know.
Right. Maybe like say this might be me lacking my lack of like knowledge about stuff with it.
It's different to say like Sill and Paulie, who I'd say they're very much the old school, like the sharp suits and like stuff. I'm glad you are enjoying
it. So to sum up, I am enjoying it.
I think we ought to do another like a revisit like we would with possibly with Game of Thrones.
Yes, I was going to say that because now you've finished it, so it might be good to do it at some point, definitely.
So if now we talk about something that we've watched that less favourable, and maybe by accident, maybe just or really shit, but maybe thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's what to be honest, I think that's what mine is.
Yeah.
This time, do you want to start?
Sure, mine actually ties in slightly to the theme.
Yeah,
very loosely. I watched on Sony Movies. I'm loving that channel for shit at the moment.
What's it on? Is it a Freeview channel?
It is most certainly Freeview.
I was going to say, have you paid for?
No, it's very far down.
Just before you go, there used to be a channel called I don't remember, Movies for Men.
I think it's replaced that.
No, because Movies for Men, I remember thinking, is this going to be like horrible?
But it's not.
Like,
it's like
porn stuff. But it's like yeah, men love action and men love.
I think that's what I'm watching pretty much. It's similar. I watched it was a Stephen King adaptation of the book.
Adaptation.
Yes, adaptation. Thinner. Have you read Thinner?
No.
It's
How old is it?
It's a pretty old one. I don't know exactly when it was written. It's not Stephen King. It's when he calls himself something else. Richard Bach.
Oh, I don't know what it is, but I know he does write some things under a pseudonym, doesn't he?
But I remember reading the book. I read the book back in uni when I went through a Stephen King binge because it's so like pulpy. It's just like reading a screenplay. It's really good.
Fun though, yeah.
So I really liked this story. It's about a guy who he's like a American fat lawyer type who accidentally runs over the daughter or mother or someone to do with a local, like a family of gypsies who's gone into town, runs them over and then gets cursed by this gypsy, as do two other people involved in the case, in which he gets off because they make sure that he doesn't have do a day in jail or do any time for the fact that he's like accidentally killed this woman, which he did after he was in the car with his wife driving, and his wife decides to give him a hand job or a blow job or something while he's driving, and that's why he's distracted and is like, whoa, I didn't see anything. So then, the gypsy comes up to him and just goes, thinner, and that's the curse. And he also does the same to two other people who are involved, the judge and the policeman involved in the case. The
witch curses them, or he does?
The gypsy curses them.
Oh, right.
There's three of them, and he doesn't really know at first what's going on. He's just dropping off this weight and is going like, I'm on a great diet, I eat everything I want, and I'm losing like pounds a day, but he ends up getting very gaunt. So the story, I think, it sounds a bit, I don't know what you think of the story, it sounds a bit crappy, but it's a good story, I would say. It's just like a horror.
Yeah.
But the film it's a guy, it starts off with a guy who's clearly in a huge fat suit.
I love, because when stuff like really relies on when lack of budget intersects with them having to do something that is a dramatic change in someone's appearance, and they're not costume bail.
I'll do it the other way. So he has a huge fat suit. It's the acting's pretty awful, and and also for some reason I thought when I read like gypsies in the book, I didn't think it would be like, there's literally one of the female characters in it is just dressed up as like Esmeralda from Hunchback.
Right.
I
love Esmeralda.
But the way I'd say it kind of relates to what we're talking about is he's just managed to get a very successful mafia boss off for something with his big lawyer skills, and this mafia boss is actually like, they've literally gone, oh, who are we going to cast as someone who can be they've cast the guy who does the voice of Fat Tony in The Simpsons.
Oh my goodness, I don't want to know what that man looks like. Does he look like Fat Tony at all?
He's thinner, but like you watch it and you're like, this really reminds me, it's just Fat Tony.
Yeah, it's Fat Tony.
So it's I mean, it's like, it's a good watch because it's very, very silly, and there's lots of good, because the other two curses that get given he goes up to one guy and says lizard, so this guy just gets really like crinkly lizardy skin that all falls off, and like
very literal cursing, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And the other one, I don't think you find out what he actually says to the other one, but basically he just like, he gets very like lumpy and he's like, can't really speak properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they say it. I was like really waiting for like, okay, well, what did the gypsy say?
What was his curse? Yeah.
So, yeah, it's and it ends, because I think everyone wants to know how it ends, is that he like he chases down these gypsies as he's getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and he gets the help of this mafia boss to kind of because the gypsies are like, this is the gypsy curse, and they come up with a thing that is cursed from the white man from town, which is basically this mafia boss absolutely terrorizing this gypsy community and like just like randomly shooting with AKs, like, and just leaving up notes being like, okay, I've killed your dogs, curse of the white man from town. And it just, yeah, and eventually the gypsy like gives him this pie and like puts the curse in the pie and says, okay, this you now are rid of it and you'll start to gain weight again quite quickly, but someone needs to eat this to get the curse, so you need to like be careful. And he was like, oh, but if you want to die true, if you want to die good, because you did run over that person when you got a blowjob from your wife, you should eat it and die like a good man. But he like straight away in his head, like for ages he's been going like, that fucking bitch, it's all that bitch's fault for sucking my dick. I was driving, she's gonna eat this, like fuck her. So
oh my goodness, what absolute like the epitome of like like that whole thing of like women for being sexual get punished in films really quickly. Yeah.
So he feeds her the pie, and like that evening when she comes back, and then like opens, because he's become convinced that she's probably having an affair with the doctor who kind of wants to help him, so he's gone a bit nuts.
He sounds really irrational. I mean, he's lost lots of weight. I shouldn't. Yeah.
Great guy. He's a great guy. But then he like lifts the sheet, and she's all like, like completely shrunken and mouldy, and he like gives her a kiss, and it's like, oh, you've lost weight, baby, and they're like really silly. And then he comes back down and he finds out his daughter's also eaten the pie. So it's like, oh no, my truth, my mom's truth. And it's,
I'm not gonna lie, this sounds great.
It's
like really, yeah,
good, but it's amazing.
Stephen King, I don't know, like I think Stephen King stuff is just, I'd argue that, I mean, like I said, I wonder how old the story is, like when he wrote, because that this sounds like he wrote that the story, whether it was like a novel or short story, it sounds like he wrote it thinking this will be good on telly, like as an adaptation of something. Do you know what I mean? Like I do think that's the case with some of this.
I'm not sure if it was a proper movie or like a made for TV thing, but like this,
right.
I really like, I enjoyed it, and it's also quite funny because some of the lines are just absolutely like cracking for how shit they are. And also me and Mike, as we were watching it, realised a lot of the scenes involved him going to people's houses to investigate what was going on with the curse, and women holding martinis screaming at him like, get out, gypsy curse, and just him falling down a load of porch steps. And that was like 40% of the film.
Oh, but it does sound good. No, that sounds good. That sounds like really entertaining, and just like, say, it's I love horror stuff like that though, that's so silly. I just love it.
It's like grown-up Goosebumps.
You what, sorry?
Grown-up Goosebumps.
Yes. No, that's 100% what it is.
Yeah.
Because that's what, yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Shall I do my one now?
Yeah. What's yours?
My one's not on theme at all, and it wasn't an accidental watch. I knew it was happening. I watched the first series of it, saw the second series just come on Netflix, and I was thrilled to ribbons. It's called Selling Sunset. It's structured reality, if you can call it. Yeah, that's what that is, isn't it? And it's so the central sort of thing of it is it follows several women who work for this real estate group called the Oppenheimer Group in Los Angeles, and they're selling disgustingly expensive homes.
Oh, like fancy Malibu.
Yeah, but there's like drama along the way and stuff, and so it's very like, it's just kind of like The Hills. In fact, I think it's by the person who made The Hills also did this. And it's just, so you get that, but you also get to look inside these amazing houses, and they like have the cost of them, how much commission they're making on them, and each thing have like bedrooms, bathrooms and stuff, and it's obscene. You're like, no one needs a house like this, or people who have enough money to spend on houses like this should take a really long hard look at themselves about like what they're doing.
In the mirror.
But it's incredibly I just got sucked, and I think I have 8 episodes of it, and I watched it in about a day and a half because I was like, I love it.
Is it famous people buying it ever?
No, so oh, there was one with a friend of Kim Kardashian's was in it and came to buy one, but then there was another episode where they both had celebrity clients who had to remain anonymous. So I don't think a lot of people would probably, and I mean the thing is as well, I suppose they don't want, a celebrity doesn't want to go on and be like, I'm going to buy this house, this is the address.
Come and see me, fans. What I need in reality, again, I don't like violence. I need a big like bitch fight in my reality TV.
Yeah, well, they do play on that a lot. They do have so there's this one woman called Christine who's very like, in fact, hey, I'm going to tie it into the gangster thing. She said one thing she said, so she talks a lot about loyalty, and like a lot of the fights come from the feeling that people have been like disloyal, and her version of loyalty is, if I call you and say I need to bury a body, that you'll be right there, no questions asked. That's what she
She sounds like a good gal in a crisis.
Yeah. But anyway, so you get some of it's like, it's dead silly, and like you do feel a bit bad for watching it, but yeah, they sort of it's quite a lot of like women falling out, which maybe we don't need more of that on telly. But and what I also,
for saying this, but I fucking live for that on reality TV. I used to watch Mob Wives, and that scenes of when they were absolutely going for each other.
Well, this is the thing with Vanderpump Rules as well. Like the reason it's so good is there are like multiple physical altercations between people, and like it's just it's entertaining, isn't it? It's bad to say, and it's probably what's wrong with the world a bit, but
they know that's what gets bums in seats. Like
exactly.
Throwing a drink in someone's face.
Yes. Why is that the best thing to watch ever? I think it might be because I don't think I'd ever have the nerve to do that. Like, I think that's a real chucking a drink in someone's face. Like, what would you do if I threw a drink in your face? We had a real argument and I chucked a drink in your face. How annoyed would you be?
One back in yours, which does tend to happen actually when it gets.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like a.
I wouldn't be very good at it, because I think you have to have like, and also as well, if I was throwing a drink in someone's face, I think ideally you'd want like a martini glass. Is that a martini? Because it's quite shallow, and whereas if I use like this,
to drop out, like
right. If I use this and it's like half full as well, I'm not going to do it.
Some people in reality TV have got around that, and you can do an almost like completely purposeful.
Yeah,
pour that over the top of your head, and like someone does that in. Is it Jersey Shore? No, it's America's Next Top Model. Do you not remember that fight?
Yeah.
And he literally pours a drink hand high up, pours it all over her head.
I think that's what you have to do, because that's what happens actually in Vanderpump Rules. A lot of it is because if you had a beer bottle, I think that'd be your only option, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You can't really slosh it. You look a bit like going back.
But I'm thinking like throwing drink in someone's face. Yeah, I'd want a martini glass, and I've only just really started it, probably because it's a short drink, isn't it?
Yeah.
Back in the face. That actually doesn't happen on Selling Sunset. I'm not gonna lie, you don't really get physical stuff. However,
mind game.
A part of it I actually really enjoy is you get people kicking off. So it's the drama with like houses not being sold, and like being on, and the sort of the actual like business drama within the brokerage, or the real, whatever you could call it, the real estate agents, or what that sounds like, it's selling I don't know. But the drama to do with that is very gripping as well.
Like it's whether they sell it.
Yeah, and like so for instance, this one woman takes on a listing that Jason and Brett, who are the owners of, so Jason and Brett are twins who own this brokerage. Brilliant. And they're very small. Like, it's not just, so all the women who work there are tall anyway, they wear heels, but they don't just look short, they look like they've been scaled down. Like, they're bigger borrowers basically. They're very small men, they're very like tanned, and have like really white teeth, and they're like they're they're kind of unsettling. The fact there are two of them, it's a bit like but yeah, so this one of the agents, I don't even know what America, like the realtors, that's what they call them, isn't it? Wants to take on this property that's like $50 million. Oh no, so he wants to sell it for $80 million, the guy who she's selling it for, and they're like, don't take it on, you'll never sell it. and then she does it anyway, and then she can't sell it, and she has to drop the price. And it sounds boring, but
Is it like
no, it's
a show, but it's like the episode of The Simpsons when Marge becomes part of the Red Blazer?
that's a good episode of The
That's
Simpsons.
so lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
Truth. No, truth. Do they say that?
That's not happened yet, but yeah, it's definitely like your guilty pleasure TV, but I enjoyed it. And so they've split the series in half as well. So we've had like the first half of the series, and then they're doing coming up with the rest of the series, and it looks so dramatic. Like one of the women gets her husband breaks up with her and files for divorce, like out of the blue, without her having any awareness it's happening. So it's actually like quite sad, but also like good TV.
Yeah, it's kind of like I watch sinful amounts of Real Housewives.
Mm-hmm. I've never watched Real Housewives. This is what was even more awful about the Vanderpump Rules thing, is I pay $4.99 a month for Hey You. I finished Vanderpump Rules
at one point. I
finished Vanderpump Rules, and then so my friend and even you were like, okay, just try watch Real Housewives. I'm like, okay, I'll just watch Vanderpump Rules again from the beginning. Like,
I know what I like, and this is what I like.
Yeah.
See, I think Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is my favourite.
That's where Lisa Vanderpump's from.
And she makes good reality TV, that woman. She's very good.
I love her on Vanderpump Rules, but I see her as the voice of reason. I'm obviously, this is why I can't watch Jack. I definitely need a bit of a break from it anyway. Yeah.
Watch some more Sopranos.
Exactly.